Bill, you're in the process of writing a book, and it's called Alchemy of a Warrior's Heart. Can you tell us why you decided on that title?
Wow, this book's been a 10-year long project, and in the course of writing this book, the book starts off with a heart attack, basically in India, and a near-death experience in India, falling off a 30-foot cliff and landing and being saved by a cobra, which is a long story. But the book goes more about the changing of who I was spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and incidentally, physically with the heart problems itself, numerous operations and near-death experiences, and it was a wake-up call. And alchemy is a word that I like because alchemy is changing like lead or some cheap material item into something such as gold. And I kind of felt this was happening to my heart. This was happening to my spirit. So it was this old warrior learning to evolve and accepting it and realizing that the issues of the heart physically were really a stepping stone for me to learn much more about who I was, what I was, and what the purpose of my journey was. So it's more than symbolic. The name really captures the essence of where I want to take the book. And so I take people on a decade-long journey of my life from the ending of my first book, A Spiritual Warrior's Journey. It involves with 4 trips to India, several near-death experiences, heart surgeries, and all kinds of physical complications, including cutting my head open for cancer and all kinds of other things. So it was a huge journey.
Would you say there was a parallel between what was happening to your heart and what was happening to your soul?
Absolutely. The soul itself, even though each of us think we're in the now, like I'm in the now, but when I was in the now 10 years ago, there was a part of me that thought, oh, I'm doing okay, spiritually. And now looking back on it in 10 years, I realized that I've evolved from that point. And I can only wonder 10 years from now, if I last that long, when I look back on now, I hope I feel the same way, because I hope this is an evolving cycle, that each year, each moment, I've learned something new from the past.
I'd like to ask you a question about one word, the now. I know that many near-death experiencers, when they talk about what they experienced, many of them refer to it as a perpetual unfolding of now that also includes the past and the future. What is your experience with this?
Time is an illusion. And I've had experience time and time again. There we go with using the word time. But time is defined by the material world. In the ethereal world, the astral world, the other dimensions, in a near-death experience, in an astral experience, in an out-of-body experience, in samadhi, time is meaningless. There is only the ongoing now, like the ongoing Om, the eternal Om. It's the past and the present. To explain it, if you took a VCR tape, you got a whole movie there, if that's your life, or lifetimes, forwards and back. And you're watching this one little section of that VCR, you're in the now. But in reality, everything's already filmed in the past, at the beginning of that tape, and everything's already in the future at the end of that tape. But you're only focusing on the now while you're in the material world. What you do in the past and what you do in the present changes what you are in the moment. And I truly believe that. I cannot explain that to people. It's something I intuitively felt, picked up, believed, been told. And somebody asked me at a talk in Saratoga a short while ago to explain that. She says, well, How can the past and the future affect the now? And so I gave her the pat answer that I was told, that, it does and everything. And finally, I looked at her and I said, you know what? Only God can explain that. If you understand time and space, you're God. Because the material mind, this physical being that I am, I can't even get the wordage to explain what I mean by it. It's unexplainable. But time and space and ego are what keep us here in this created world.
Bill, many people listening to you talk about this, well, actually some people become quite angry at what you're saying because they don't understand it. And how do you deal with the hubris that comes from some of these people?
It's interesting because if you take a look at history, when great leaders have arisen, or saints or sages, even within the church, the Catholic Church has burned many of their saints at the stake because they weren't understood or they were attacked during their lifetimes. Not that I'm in a category with any of those people, but anybody that rises up in celebrity status or higher status or spotlight is on them, there's a sick perversion out there, a need to attack, to bring down, to tear apart, to degrade and bring negative into what somebody's delivering. And I found right now what's going on in the world, as certain saints and sages and enlightened leaders around the world, and there are some, rise up. The universe is going to balance this off with an equal rise of evil power, negative power. And there's always going to be this ongoing conflict. But if somebody spends their whole entire life going around trying to be liked and loved by everyone, then they will never live an authentic life. They will never find their self. You should be free to explore the inner self and be who you are. And throughout history, we've seen where that can lead to some pretty dangerous consequences, as Jesus found out and others. It's not necessarily always a good ending. But at some point in time, you got to be true to you and true to your own spirit. And in my particular case, I feel I have a message. It's not about me. It's about what's inspired my life. And I feel a need to share that, and that's why I'm 68 years old now, and I'm just getting around now to sharing a lot of this. Because I know that I have a limited amount of time, and when I'm gone, these stories and experiences that I've had and the things I've learned will die with me. And I don't think that's such a good thing, because I think there's some things that I've learned that I could transfer, give to, or give to others. That's my hope, and that's my desire. And if I just inspire somebody to look a little deeper into themselves. It's not about believing me. God knows I don't want them to follow me, imitate me. But if I can inspire them, if I could become, and I'll use this phrase I've used before, if I could become their spiritual cheerleader and get them on their personal journey, then I've succeeded in my mission. That's as simple as I can go.
Do you feel it's important for people to make mistakes?
Well, you know what? You don't have to plan it. It's going to happen. If you're wearing a human flesh and bone body and you got a mind, a brain, you're going to make mistakes. And then you got to ask yourself, sometimes are mistakes really mistakes? There are those serendipitous things we do sometimes that turn out to be magic. Like I shouldn't have quit my job, and then all of a sudden you got a better job, or I should have did this and something else happens. Things that happen are neither good nor bad or necessarily a mistake. Now, when you have no control over your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions, so-called mistakes, negative karma, it's going to be accumulated. I mean, if you don't show precaution in what you eat and you spend your whole lifetime eating fast food and drinking booze and doing drugs, all of a sudden you're 65 years old and you're in a world of hurt and you're sick and you wonder why. Same thing happens spiritually. Same thing happens emotionally. The key is, if you make an error, mistake, error, you go a direction. And we talked about this before. I make my decisions based on light. If this is eternal light, this is light. Call it God, call it Jesus, call it Buddha, call it heaven, call it the force, whatever. If this is the light, and this is the darkness, the negative. And everything you do in your life, if you base it on one question, is this going to take me towards the light or away from the light? Because there's not very many things that are neutral. If you eat high cholesterol foods, it's going to take you to cancer or whatever, obesity. But if you have negative thoughts and you're holding anger about others, you have a choice. Something happens to you in life. You have a choice. Somebody just messed you over. They've said bad things about you. They stepped on your toes publicly. They've done whatever they've done. They stabbed you in the back emotionally. Now you got a choice. Do I go to the light with this? Forgive, love, move on, send a prayer to this person? Or do I hold resentment, anger, and I want to see instant karma for this person? I want to see him punished. And you take justice in your hands. That's a real thing people face every day. Because in the real world, betrayal of friendships and relationships, that's an ongoing thing. And if you live long enough, somebody's going to betray you. Somebody's going to be disloyal. Somebody's going to break your heart in some way. Somebody's going to be insensitive to you. And if you focus on all those negative things, what I call the 5 to 10% of your life, then you miss the 90% or the 95% of your life that's in the sunshine. It's like you're walking through the woods and I'm with somebody and I'm looking at flowers, I'm looking at ferns, I'm looking at this other stuff. This other guy, I'm walking through the woods on this particular hike I was on, and all he saw was disease in the trees, killing the trees, and he saw some trees cut down, and he was upset about the logging industry, and I mean, he was going everywhere he looked, he was finding stuff wrong with the environment. You know, it was like, my old thing is, if you look for garbage, the universe will reward you. You will find garbage. If you look for trouble, if you look for rejection, if you believe that everybody hates you, you know what? You're going to find that. And you're going to find evidence of that. If you think everybody loves you, well, you're going to get a very receptive audience. Now, there's people that are not going to love you, but you attract what you focus on. So my advice to my grandchildren, to others, is focus on those things that take you closer to the light.
Bill, you said that the other day that as light rises, so does darkness. So if a person is intent on living a spiritual life with supposedly an increase in light, does that mean by his own actions he's helping darkness to increase?
That's a good question. It's a universal question that I don't have an answer for, to be honest with you. I give you my opinion. I think that the universe, this is God's play. This is this great delusional material world we live in. But there is this thing to fill a vacuum. There's this thing when you got darkness, you got light. When you got yes, you got no. You got up, you got down. You got all these dualities, opposites. And as history shows, and as the great masters in India talk about it, as great spirituality, great spiritual beings come forth, they're going to be met with some great negative beings attacking them. It's seems to be a spiritual war. But there's, right now, you look at the world and you go, my God, it's terrible. Look, we got wars, we got terrorists, we got people hating each other. There's people in Africa and Middle East, and I look at India and other places and I go, you know, there are people up in the mountains there's people in the ashrams, there's householders, places, you know, saints and sages all over the world. People that I have met that are beyond what the normal people would consider spiritual. These people are highly evolved beings. And so I've got great hope that in the end, ultimately, the light wins.
Does God love Hitler?
Absolutely. God and Hitler are one. And that's going to create, Jesus and Hitler are one. And God is everything. How can you separate Hitler from God? If God is everything, you can't separate God from nothing. God is a rock, a flower, it's you, it's me, my friends, my family, it's your pet dog. But there are people, many people, the majority of people, they believe that Hitler and Saddam and all these other bad guys out there, that they're evil, they're going to hell, they're going to burn for, eternity and suffer pain. No, I don't believe that. I believe that we're all evolving and everybody's playing a piece in this great puzzle. What was the purpose of World War II? Well, it was an evil thing, and it was terrible, and there was a lot of darkness, and there was a lot of suffering, and my gosh, you can write history books on it, and they have. But it also brought to fold heroes, people that came forth and saved the Jews, people that came forth and saved their nation, people on the battlefield, and people that made sacrifices for others. So in the chaos of war, in the destruction, the negativity, and the darkness of war, there was light shining and inspired people.
What about accountability?
Everybody's accountable to that great karmic history book. And whatever you do, you can label it good, bad, indifferent, whatever you want. But everything you do, you're accountable for. For what you sow, so shall you reap. And to think how upset everybody was on the O.J. Simpson trial, the guy nobody gets away with murder. Nobody gets away with anything. But if we sit around and we want to see instant justice, and we want to see instant karma, there's a time and a place for that, and there's people for that. But it's something I don't waste my time with. I figure God is the judge, not me. And I don't think God judges. I think in the end, we judge ourselves. And karmic payment is basically adding up the math. And not all karma is bad. Karma is good. You wonder why some guy wins, billions of dollars. This idiot wins $1 billion. Why should he win all this money and be rich? He had karmic payback in the material life, material world, money. So, and because somebody gets sick or ill or has disease or they're born lame or blind, doesn't necessarily they did something bad the last lifetime either. We don't really fully understand this karmic thing. Sometimes souls migrating back into the material world from the other side choose to take on greater karmic debt to help speed up their evolution. So they may come back as a cripple, somebody that can't walk or talk or retarded, or come back and be born into poverty and choose a lot of things. These decisions and these things were made before they got here. And sometimes they have control over that. Sometimes it's a choice. So you can't just automatically say, oh, look at the bad karma of this guy. He's got cancer because he deserves. You don't know why you don't know what's happening there. And in highly evolved beings, St. Francis of Assisi for one, and some other saints and sages, they're taking on diseases and hurts and things from other people. They're taking on pain for others. Who knows when and where? They may not even be aware of it.
Are you saying that we come to this world in order to learn? It seems to me that if we came from a place of wisdom before we came to this world, that we would already know what is important. So why is it important to come to this world to learn?
There's many things that the earth, this material birth does that you can't get on the other side. Temptations, for example, sex, food, money, material possessions, power, control, political ambition. All these assets are at play in the material world, where you don't have these hurdles on the other side. So in order to hone your your life skills, your spirituality. You have to be tested, and you have to go through these things. Now, a lot of people believe when you're on the other side, you're automatically wise and you got all this great wisdom. You don't, just because you die doesn't make you enlightened and you know everything when you go to the other side. It's just you've changed form, but not all of a sudden you're not going to know everything. It depends on your level of spiritual work and effort here at this plane. And on the other side, they teach you as far as you can go. As you know, on the other side, what's they talk about in the Bible, 7 heavens, and how many they may be on the other side. You go where your consciousness, where your light and your vibration takes you, and you will find the teachers and the teachings that you need to take you to the next level.
How do you know this?
Been there, done that, experienced it, tasted it, felt it, been a part of it, absorbed it through near-death experiences, through near-death-like experiences, through spiritual experiences, through states of meditation.
At the core of what you're about is the idea of forgiveness. And you've said that forgiveness is not approval. So could you talk to us about why forgiveness is so at the core of your teaching?
Forgiveness or the lack of forgiveness. Let's start with the lack of forgiveness. The lack of forgiveness is a chain. It doesn't free you. It holds you in a prison. It creates unnecessary unhappiness. It destroys your inner joy. It destroys your peace. So forgiveness, the first thing you got to realize, and those that are hurt and they feel they're victims, is that forgiving the other person is not about them. Forgiving someone is all about you. It's freeing you from this prison. It's giving you the freedom to move forward and not hang on to this old karma between you and that other person or group of people or another country or whatever. So without this foundation, this ability to forgive others and move on, this world is destined to continue in wars, such as in Israel with Palestine, such as in the Middle East with all the different sectors and sections and sects of the Muslim religion, as it is between the Irish and the English, or all the tribes in Africa. There's all this old animosity. You've killed him, I'm going to kill you because it was my father, my brother. At some point in time, somebody has to say, I forgive you. I'm moving on. I stopped playing the game. If you want to hold the anger, you want to hold the grudge, you want to be angry at me, you want to throw rocks, it's on you. You're fighting a war by yourself. I'm walking away. Very hard for somebody to sustain a war against you when you offer no energy back. It's like the old karate. What they teach you in karate classes and judo classes, somebody's attacking you, you always take their energy and you go with it. And it's the same thing with criticism and hate and anger. As much as we are all affected, I don't care if you're a saint and you think you're enlightened, everybody wants to be liked and loved. That's a natural thing. But at some point in time, you have to be able to be strong enough to say, you know what? I'm okay. You don't like me? I'm okay. That's all right. You don't have to like me. I forgive you. And you don't have to tell the person that. That's showboating. I forgive you. I'm going to pray for you. Guy doesn't even have to know it. Person doesn't have to know it. Some of the greatest forgiveness takes place with people when they're dead. They're on the other side. You forgive them. You cut that. They don't even have to be alive. It's about you, the forgiver.
Many people feel that it's absolutely crucial to be able to know who they are, and so they try to define themselves. Is this always positive?
Well, unfortunately, some people's idea of self-discovery leads them to drugs, alcohol, sex, power, all these other things, because they're trying to find themselves. Is it wrong trying to find themselves? Is their desire to find themselves wrong? No, that's not the problem. Their problem comes in their choice, their vehicle. to find themselves. The normal evolution is trial and error. You make a mistake, you get burned, you know, if you put your hand on the stove, you get burned, you learn something, you don't put your hand on the stove anymore. So that's the first beginning. The criminal, he ends up doing something wrong, he goes to jail, he learns something, he moves on. But as you get older, you start reading books, you start listening to lectures. That's the beginning of the enlightening process of waking up. And that's what I'm trying to reach out there. There's people out there that are at that stage that are saying, you know, I'm a seeker. I want to change. I want to evolve. I want to be better. I want to find out who and what I am. What's the purpose of life? That's the biggest question. Why am I here? Why do I get up every day? Why do I go through the motions? And so it starts with the inner search, but the inner search actually starts in the outer. Going to church, reading books, going to lectures, conversations, and then sometime along the way, they realize that it's through meditation, contemplation, silence, time alone, going within, that they begin to know the self. And they find that the real self is the guru. He's in within all of us. Unfortunately, we need an outer guru because we can't distinguish, most people can't distinguish and filter their own true higher self voice, you know, the real true guru from their other instincts and their thoughts. So it's always good to have a mentor, a guru, and as you evolve, you want somebody of a higher level, and it keeps going up. As they say, when the student's ready, the teacher comes, and that is true. That's true. For some people, the teacher could just be a mentor, a football coach on a team. For a young man, he needs some good advice in his life. And then you get to that point where you're looking for a Zen master, you're looking for a Sat Guru, you're looking for something deeper. But in all cases, it involves self-effort.
You said that the words that we use to describe ourselves can affect the body. Now, there are positive words and negative words. Does that mean that positive words affect the body positively and negative words affect the body negatively? And is it possible to live a life without any definition at all? Without putting any words on ourselves?
I am. In the beginning, I am the light. The Bible starts right off with labeling I am. What we label ourselves, and how do we do that? People don't, you know, some people do it literally with tattoos, and hate on your knuckles and love. But in reality, we label children all the time. You stupid kid. Oh, you're so smart, you're a genius. You idiot. You're nasty, you're mean, you're a bully. You're a beautiful person. We label people in our lives all the time. And if people are not wise or they're not old enough to realize that coming from a parent, maybe the parent's not right, maybe you're not the stupidest thing that ever crawled out of the ocean, we affect others by labeling them. And then by us accepting labels from others, we also alter our lives. Now, Dr. Emoto from Japan, who's done all these beautiful posters and studies, he has these big prints in magazines and books and stuff of water crystals that he freezes. And they take ordinary water, and they freeze it, and they take a picture of it, and it has a nice little shape. And then they take that same bottle of water, and they put love on it for 24 hours. A label of love on the bottle. That's all. It just says love. And it doesn't matter if it's in Japanese or English or Russian. And when they examine it under their microscope and it's frozen, it's altered and changed the actual crystals. It's more brilliant, more loving, more beautiful. And in reverse, they've taken the same bottle of water and wrote hate on the bottle. Or they've played music like rap music and real angry music, and it changes the shape into something more jagged and ugly. Whereas classical music, soft spiritual music changes it again. So realize that if water crystals change just by labeling, and our body is made out of 80%, is it 70, 80%, whatever it is, of water, then we are actually changing ourselves. So if somebody's always asked how you are health-wise, and they always say, oh, I'm always sick, and they affirm their illnesses, and they affirm their cancer, whatever, they're not aiding their health. They're giving energy to whatever it is that's in there that's causing them a problem. So yeah, labeling people, labeling cultures, labeling races, countries. I mean, you can go this whole spectrum. It changes things.
Yeah. Bill, you told me a story the other day about a guru who was from India who was riding in a very grimy railway car, and you learned a lesson from that. Could you tell us that story now?
Yeah, it was a Walt Disney movie, in fact. As strange as that. Mm-hmm. And I don't normally watch Walt Disney movies, but I got grandkids, so I confess. And these two young American children are riding on this train through India. And they leave the first class compartment and they go back in a boxcar where this guru kind of guy sitting back there, this sadhu. And there's this smoke pouring in from the train engine into this open boxcar door. And these kids are like, oh, geez, they're complaining and everything. How can you stand and sit with the smoke? And there's garbage outside. They're going through a poverty area and everything. And he points to this hillside on the side and he says, see that? Jasmine. He says, I'm focusing on the scent of jasmine. Everything else wasn't there. So it really gets back to this, what you focus on, you will find. If you think you're a victim, you are a victim. You'll become a victim. If you think you're lonely, you think you got nothing to add to the world, whatever you think of yourself, to get back to the labeling, whatever you label yourself, you create.
Bill, you're a storyteller, and you have many, many stories about events that have happened in your life. And people sometimes wonder whether the event really happens. But you maintain that stories have the power to change people if they see the point in the story. So what do you have to say about this?
First off, I expect everybody, if they're an intelligent human being, to always be skeptical. To not be skeptical, not to think, and use your mind a little bit when you're hearing something, would be wrong. And to ask people to mindlessly believe whatever you say is wrong. Nobody should ever, no speaker, no writer, no leader should ever demand of anybody that everybody believes 100% and accept it. Critics are welcome. It's all right. I only know what I personally experience. I'm not an expert on the Bhagavad Gita or the Bible or any special scriptures and teachings and writings, but I know what I've experienced. Now, whether I'm delusional, whether I'm crazy, that's up to the people that know me to make that judgment. All I know is I know what love is because I've experienced it and I've given it. And for those people that are listening to this, I think they can evaluate that, because you know when somebody really loves you. You know when you've experienced it's for real and it's not fake. And you know when it's make-believe. I put myself out there. I'm speaking around the country. I'm writing books. I'm doing things. I'm not making any money. It's cost. I lose money. I go out. Why are you going out there? Why are you going out there? Because I give away hundreds of books every year. Not counting the ones. I probably sell as many as I give away. And it's not about money. It's not about people believing me. It's not about me, because I'm not going to be around forever. But my words in my books, the words on these tapes will be. And I'm hoping that people realize that I'm stepping out of the safety zone where I could just sit back and not be criticized, just be me, quiet life, and go meditate in my room every day and be at peace. I'm stepping out and I'm saying, hey, I've got something to share. And I'm sharing it because these things that happened to me weren't just for me. They happened to me, but they're for everyone. Because there's people out there that don't experience miracles every day. They don't see supernatural things going on. They don't know there's other dimensions. They live in the material world, and they're starting to lose hope. So I'm telling people, things are happening. There are miracles every day. There are healings. There are spiritual experiences going on out there. Now, when somebody tells you a story, you have to be the judge of it, because there's awful lot of delusional souls out there. I've met a few that, first clue, I meet somebody and the guy goes, well, I'm enlightened. I've been enlightened, since I've been born, or, since something happened to me, I'm enlightened. Well, no. If you're enlightened, you're one with God. I'm not enlightened. But I am someone who's been gifted experiences. And I've been told when I was in India, when I had my Vedic charts done and my Nadi palm reading done, and even when I had my tarot cards done back in 2010, that in spite of the attacks I may get, or the danger to my own ego, or whatever else, that it was my job, my mission, my task, my goal, the focus of my life at this stage, to share what I've learned, what I've experienced, so that others may be inspired for their own personal journey.
A while ago you said that you're not enlightened. What is enlightenment? And how would you know that you're not enlightened?
First off, there's degrees. There's degrees of enlightenment. True enlightenment, true knowing that you and God are one. It's past that knowing. It's done. It's you are. God and one is one. But there's process. There's Buddha, 49 days, 49 nights. He meditates. They say he's enlightened. He woke up. He woke up. He was the awakened one. As you evolve, you're changing the light, literally, the light and the energy within your spine, within you. You vibrate at a different level. Any man who sits around and tells you, or woman that tells you they're enlightened, I would run. Anybody that tells you they're going in samadhi every day and they know it all and they talk to God personally, I would run. I would not attack these people in public, but I tell you what, I have my doubts. Am I enlightened? We all are in some way, and we all are ultimately, because since the past and the future collide with the now, sometime I'll be enlightened, because it's already happened. It's already at the end of that VCR tape I was talking about earlier. So I'm already there. You are already there. The people watching this film, they already are enlightened. They haven't been awakened like the Buddha. So, yes, we all are at various stages of awakening. But ultimately, in the ultimate now, we're all enlightened.
Let me paraphrase a quote you have on your card. It's the only thing that's real is love, or love is the only thing that's real. What power does love have to dissolve what the ego has built up?
Love is the building block of the universe. I honestly, and I've talked about this before publicly, maybe even on tapes, but love to me is the ultimate God particle. God is love. Love is God. I don't see any difference. And since everything is God, if you believe that concept, everything is made by God, it is a reflection of God, we're made in the image of God, everything is. So what is God saying? Does God look like me? Like you? God looks like love. And love is with all of us, even in a rock. So, to me, the only thing that I really trust is love, pure love, that divine love, because there's a lot of infatuation, romance, all these other things. I love money, I love you because of this, that's not love. I'm talking about divine love.
Can you define that?
I can express it and I can feel it. Can I define it? Probably not. I've had so many experiences in my life, and I got a very good writer friend. She's sold, I don't know, 20 million books and everything. She's a great writer, and she was taught meditation, and I was telling her about my experiences and stuff. She says, "Well, why can't you tell me that?" She says, you know, I'm a good writer. I can write about that. I said, "No, there's no words for that." She says, "Well, yeah, there's this concept that it's just about words." But my question is this: if you were blind, you can't see, how would I explain the color green to you without you talking about another shade of color to tell you? How can I explain green to somebody that's never seen? Or explain what a harp sounds like to somebody who doesn't hear? So there are things going on in the world that we're not going to be able to explain. But love, a baby understands it. A puppy understands it. A 96-year-old woman understands it. An old veteran understands it. We know love when it's genuine. And that is the cord. That's what attaches us all. That's what makes us angelic. That's what makes us God particles. Each one of us is a God particle.
We're here in Silicon Valley, and people tend to be very practical here. And yet, in order to be as practical as they are, they have to use the principles, let's say, of quantum physics, which not many people understand. Apparently, there are dimensions other than what we can perceive with our senses. So how can we be aware of other dimensions if they cannot be perceived with our senses?
The physical body, the mind, physical eyes, physical ears, physical touch, it's limited. It's only limited to the five senses. You can't touch and feel what you can't see. And even though scientists are now discovering things they didn't know 25, 30, 50 years ago, like strings and all these other things, doesn't mean that they weren't always there. And it doesn't also mean that we're now going to discover things even smaller and more interesting than the things we've now discovered. What's interesting is 12,000, 5,000, 15,000, 20,000 years ago, these yogis up in the Himalayan mountains, they were already talking about these God particles like small mini universes. They were talking about the atom, with all these little things spinning around, nucleus and everything. But they were talking about like planets and suns and stuff. Inside, basically their whole theory was if you go big enough or small enough, it all looks the same. And the real connection is this. I think about the human body. Every cell in that body, if you took your toe, is your toe the body? Is the toe you? Is the thumb you? Is it one cell in your kidney you? They're all together you. But if you took them individually by cell, what are they? They're still you. And so it's like a hologram. People are like, what's God? You know what? God is everything. Therefore, every particle of you and the rock and everything else, it's all God. It gets back to the same concept. It's all God. But the human mind and the human senses are not going to be able to delve into that. They're not going to be able to crack that because you're trying to do it through the human mind. All right, so how do you perceive it? That should be the question. How do you perceive the other dimensions? How do you go past the material world into this other area? The astral world, causal world, what's out there beyond. And there is something out there beyond. And some of us in life, and I've met others, have experienced this. Now, are we all crazy? I don't know, maybe some of us are. But there is something beyond there. And people with near-death experiences, most especially, they find out there is another dimension. There is something else going on out there. And it's a glimpse. And I'm trying to tell people, you don't have to die to have that experience. You don't have to physically have trauma to experience another dimension. It's there. Now, how do you get there? Meditation. Not just any meditation, a deep one that what we refer to, like in India, is a Kundalini meditation. Something that takes the energy through the spine, moves that energy up and down the spine, spinal cord, which is the Kundalini, the Kundalini energy moving up and down. And through meditation, you reach higher states. You're not meditating to reach the higher states, but you will. It's a byproduct. You should be meditating to find, or not find necessarily, but to be able to talk to and listen to God. You should go in meditation because you love God and you're there to express that love. That's the purest meditation. Some people will go into meditation because they want to do an out-of-body experience, they want to go into another dimension, they want to read minds, well, you know what? That's almost like a different form of materialism. I'm talking about a sense of direction that's all inwardly based towards the light. Meaning, I'm going to God not because I want health, not because I want peace, not because I'm trying to escape my problems, not because I'm trying to find enlightenment. I'm going to God because I love God. And that's a big difference. So how do you find it? You find it, again, I said meditation, but follow that. Meditation with love, focus. And there's a lot of techniques, and people can go anywhere they want. Self-Realization Fellowship has Kriya Yoga, there's Hamsa Yoga that teaches a Kriya Yoga, there's several groups out there that'll teach a Kundalini energy. It'll all work. It's the power of the meditator and their focus. But if they just concentrate on the technique and live a life crazy, materially, focused on sex and drugs or booze or whatever, or restless mind, they're only going to get so far. Techniques will take you so far. Love is the key that opens the door.
I asked you a question a little bit earlier about accessing different dimensions, and you said that you can do that with dedicated meditation. And you also know many people who've had near-death experiences, and you've had them yourself. So my next question is, if a near-death experience happens when there's no brain activity or no life activity, then where, if I can use that word, where is the near-death experience taking place?
First off, you got to realize the brain is an organ. It's flesh and blood. It's material. It is not who you are, just as much as the toe is not who you are. It's a great functioning thing. It causes all kinds of things for the body and thoughts and everything else. But it's the consciousness, this outside of the brain here. You can have your head blown off and you still got consciousness. You could be dead, you could be flatlined, and you're still conscious. It's a consciousness. It's not predicated by having a brain. Therefore, on the other side, you don't have a physical body, but you still got you don't lose that essence, that spiritual essence, that angelic quality, that astral body, that whatever you want to call it, this other that travels out, no matter what level it goes to, no matter what bodies it may wear, it's always about that individual consciousness. And when that consciousness expands, like it's samadhi or a great spiritual experience, it's like travel. You just, but it's expansion of the consciousness. That's when you become, like in samadhi, great saints and yogis have written about that stage, where you become one with the trees and one with the rocks, one with everything, and it's not a lie. It's true. Because your consciousness is taking it all in. You are all that you see. You are all that you feel. And ultimately, that's where we're heading. The human species is evolving, contrary to what we think. Scientists now say that, scientists are now saying, it's in the newspaper, that we're on our 6th generation root race on Earth. That this planet's been destroyed at least 5 times, either by fire, water, some plasmitic event, Ice Age, something. And there's certainty that that's not the end. If it's happened 5 times already in our history, we got a lot of history left to go, it's just a matter of time, it'll happen again. And every time we do that, we recycle, but we physically, spiritually, and mentally are evolving. It's like our spiritual DNA, somebody's saving it, saving the best, like a Noah's Ark type of thing. And this next generation that survives that comes back stronger, better, smarter, more spiritual. As a group, and there's people at the bottom of this group and there's people at the top of the group, but as a group, we're evolving as a family. We're evolving together. And those that make it to the top, they don't just abandon those down below. The great ones reach down and help those at the next level. And if each of us reach down to the next level, then we're all connected. It's kind of like God is the Sherpa, or your guru is the Sherpa. He's taking you up to the top of the mountain of wisdom. Nobody can take you to the top of the mountain unless they've been up there, like Everest. You have to hire a Sherpa, somebody that's been there to take you there. And so I'm on this lifeline going up that hill, and millions of other people behind, in front of me. I fall off, I'm held on because there's a lifeline with others. But you know what? Even though it may take 1 billion years for the last guy in the line to get to the top, they're all going to get to the top. Because ultimately, that's where it's all destined to go. It's a spiritual evolution.
Evolutionary scientists will tell you that the body has evolved along with the brain to such a point that we have consciousness. They can't exactly explain precisely how consciousness arises from the brain because it may not. So if consciousness is in some way independent of evolution, where does it come from? My question is physical evolution a separate process from spiritual conscious evolution?
I think it's all connected. I was listening to a beautiful dissertation, a satsang in India by my guru, Yogaraj Sadgurunath Siddhanath, and I probably won't do his words or his ideas justice, so I will frame him in my point, how I heard it, and it's not as beautiful as he said it, but basically he sees a conflict in the Western world where there's a big argument over evolution or creation or whatever. How'd this thing go from the caveman, the monkey, and it go on. And to him and to other yogis, there's no argument. It's like God had this evolutionary process going on for animals, like the apes, they came from the ape or whatever. And the evolutionary caveman kept evolving until the body, the brain size, the body, everything, was at some level where then the divine spirit of the human singular soul could live in that body. It was made as a vehicle for the body. So someplace along the line that spirit entered the body. That's why it's hard to find the connection when this happened. It's like, well, where's the species in between? So it's believed that, there's a physical evolution, but there's also the spiritual evolution. And someplace in time, go back to time, whatever time is, someplace in this evolutionary process, man, the spirit, the individualized soul, went from the animal soul, the group soul, to the individualized soul. Because you got rocks, they got plants, all different levels of consciousness, and they do have consciousnesses. But the human body is finely tuned. It's been an evolutionary spiritual process. And it's this DNA that evolves each root generation. I hope that explains it, because I don't even understand it myself, to be honest. It's easy to talk about. Mm-hmm. It's easy to listen to others talk about. And ultimately, whether we understand it or not, is not really important, because it gets down to the individual effort. You may not understand any of the scriptures, any of the theories, history, evolution, none of this stuff. You may know nothing. You may be totally ignorant of all that. But you love God. That's it.
Bill, I've kind of reached the limit of what kind of questions I can ask at this point. But the only question I have left is, you've given talks all over, and is there one question that you have not been asked that you wish someone would ask you? And if there is a question you'd like someone to ask you that hasn't been asked, what would it be? We've got about 5 minutes left.
I think the question that everybody needs to ask themselves is, what's my purpose? I try to throw it out there to people, but people miss it. They keep looking for this pie in the sky. Everybody thinks they got to be, a church leader or a yogi, or they got to be a doctor, saint, sage, inventor, save the world. And I'm going, no. This world is evolving by one kindness, one generous act at a time. And there's these different elements that people are bringing into the world. Artists, musicians, poets, writers, doctors, lawyers even. Okay, maybe lawyers. All right, but all these different elements of service and things that people do that give life meaning. It would be a pretty boring world for all of us if all of us were the same. So somebody goes, well, I'm just a housewife. I'm just a mother. And I'm going, whoa, a mother. One of the greatest jobs in the world. You get a chance to help evolve a spiritual child. Your influence is really great the first few years. There's a chance to really reach out. Well, I'm just working at Walmart. What do I know? I'm just well, wow. You get a chance to interact with people every day. And that may be the only conversation they have all day is you saying good morning to them and smiling at them. I had a mailman used to work for me when I was a boss in management. And this guy was so popular on his route. He went out there, and I talked to him one day. I go, because he was running a little late on his route every day. And when I went out and watched him, I backed off. I go, you know what? He's doing a service because some little old lady lived in a house. He knew she was like 90-some years old. She didn't pick up the mail yesterday. Just one day. He noticed. He's on the door. Knock, knock. Mrs. Olson, are you checking on her? And then he meets and greets other people. And for some people, the old people, especially some of the old retired people, on his route, he had one of these old senior citizen areas. That was the only conversation they had the entire day. So did he aid world evolution? Absolutely. Did he have something generously and artistic and loving? Yes, he did. And so all of us at some level can do that. And so your purpose in life is to love and to serve. That's it.
Bill, thank you once again.
Thank you.